According to Fethullah Gulen, he says, and I quote, "Religion focuses primarily on the immutable aspects of life and existence, whereas political, social, and economic systems or ideologies concern only certain variable social aspects of our worldly life." End of quote. Given that human person is psychosomatic, that is made of body and soul, it follows that religion and political governance must work in collaboration to promote the common good and common welfare of its citizens. When I was Secretary to the Government of the Federation between the year 2017 to 2023, working with the Nigeria Interreligious Council made my work very easy. I have worked with two sets of leadership of NIREC between 2017 and 2023, sometimes under very challenging circumstances. But in it all, God helped us to prevail. Between 2013 and 2018, NIREC did not meet. I repeat again, between 2013 and 2018, NIREC did not meet because it was conflicted. I assumed office as Secretary to the government in 2017. And His Eminence, the Sultan, invited me to his residence to share his burden with me. And I accepted the invitation through a mutual friend. And I remember, I hope the Sultan, His Eminence, will remember, he laid out his burden and his heart about what has happened to NIREC after he stated all the efforts that he was putting in place to ensure the revigoration of NIREC so that they will start to meet. So I was a little bit apprehensive this morning when I heard him say that we will take a decision whether this thing will continue or not. The second burden that he laid and raised with me was that the leadership of CAN, not forget, he is president, Spring Council for Islamic Affairs. He has no business with the leadership of CAN, but because of his statesmanly attitude and the love for the country of Nigeria, knowing fully well that our two fault lines are either ethnic or religious, he wanted a strong CAN, not a divided CAN. And he raised it with me and said, CAN went to an election, and as a byproduct of that election, there are litigations and there are conflicts. And he assured me that he was doing his best to ensure that all those matters relating to the election of Dr. Supo Ayokule as CAN president were resolved. And he urged me on my own part to do the best I can do in intervening in that regard. And that's why I said I served with two leaderships of CAN, and sometimes under very challenging circumstances. But in it all, God helped us to prevail. So this morning, before I continue my remarks, I want to thank His Eminence, the Sultan of Sokoto, for that foundational meeting that we had, which invariably led to the renewal of the meetings of NIREC, and peace being brought to Khan, so that in NIREC there will be a strong party. It is on this note that I find the theme of this meeting, collaboration of interreligious councils with government to promote peace in Nigeria, very appropriate. From the documentary of NIREC and following the proceedings of NIREC, I'm amazed about the fact that the Nigerian Interreligious Council NIREC came into being after the dawn of democracy in 1999 to serve as a platform for high-level dialogue between leaders of Christians and Muslims in the country, thereby promoting public good. The Council is designed to promote understanding, appreciation of one another, and the generalization of mutual respect between Christians and Muslims. The Constitution of NIREC clarifies its role in conflict management, particularly in Article 3 of the Constitution of NIREC. It articulates the aims and objectives of the Council, among which are, I quote, to honestly and sincerely understand the true teachings of the two religions, promote dialogue between Christians and Muslims, inculcate moral, ethical, social and cultural values of the two faiths for the rebirth and rebuilding of a better society. Therefore, NIREC can reposition Nigeria to think of the common good of the nation and not the contest of supremacy between Christians and Muslims. Since the inception of NIREC, the frequent conflicts between Christians and Muslims that often result in burning of houses of worship has been reduced to the barest minimum, except for those perpetrated by terrorists and bandits. Before NIREC, almost every conflict was perceived with the lenses of religion. With NIREC, Nigerians can now understand what is political, what is ethnic, what is economic, and what is religious in terms of conflict. Before I came here, myself and the Sultan were sharing of a conflict that just erupted in Adamawa State, in a particular local government. And he mentioned the fact that if it is not addressed as quickly as possible, being a fundamentally ethnic conflict between two groups, very soon the polarization will be given the tendency of being religious. And I quite agree with you. So as members of NIREC, as we leave this place, we should help in educating our people that a lot of the conflicts in Nigeria border on different aspects, but if not well handled and the narrative not well guided, they always end up having the polarization of religious. The activities of NIREC are reported in the media. When I served, the council met 4 times in a year. I tried to keep up with the spirit of the government from the inception of NIREC. The idea of Nigeria Interreligious Council was first suggested to religious leaders by St. Pope John Paul II during his second visit to Nigeria in 1998 for the beatification of Father Cyprian Ewene Tansi. The Christian and Muslim leaders took up the challenge in 1999 with the support of President Olusegun Obasanjo, GCFR. Since then, the federal government has been supporting NAREC through the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. And this explains why their office is domiciled in the Federal Secretariat on Shehu Shagari Way, Abuja. The government needs both Christians and Muslims to foster peaceful coexistence and national unity. NAREC strives to reclaim the national unity and peace that can make Nigeria once more a home for all by monitoring and identifying potential hotspots for brewing religious intolerance and violence, preventing and managing conflict, supporting people that are marginalized because of their religious identity through advocacy and capacity building, advising and empowering for the provision of legal protection for those suffering from religiously motivated violence, investigating and reporting on religious tension to legitimate organs of government for proactive measures, and working out strategies for collaboration in the support of human dignity and for freedom of religion. Since the beginning of the America and Nigeria dispute, I've been following the way closely the Office of NAREC has been managing the situation to ensure that the narrative does not turn Christians and Muslims against each other, which is the main strategy of the terrorists and bandits. And I must commend NAREC for doing that in navigating and managing the narrative, which is very, very important. In my working relationship with NAREC as SDF, we were able to mediate in the following issues that arose. I will just mention them and probably speak to two of them. One, you will remember the alleged demolition of the Trans Amadi Mosque in Port Harcourt, which got us on edge. It was NAREC's intervention that calmed the situation and finally brought a resolution to the matter, ably supported by the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Secondly, we facilitated NAREC's collaboration and visit to the Chief of Defense Staff, and they discussed the operational issues that were becoming a matter of concern in the battle areas and the areas that were conflicted. Thirdly, under President Buhari, for the first time in 2021, NAREC met with the President to discuss national issues. Fourthly, NAREC's prayerful intervention and animation of Nigerians concerning COVID-19 remains unbeatable globally. I will speak to that later. Fifthly, NAREC and the Office of the Secretary to the Government collaborated and held a consultative peace forum in Jos at the peak of the crisis on the plateau on the 6th of September 2021. We got NAREC to appeal to our young persons during the End SARS crisis, and they did that, and that brought some semblance of peace in the midst of the crisis. Seventh, NAREC was encouraged to intervene on the impasse between government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU. NAREC public webinar to enlighten the public on peaceful coexistence is one area that's worthy of mention. Now let me speak to NAREC's intervention on the behest of the global pandemic COVID-19. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the only way I, as chairman of the Presidential Task Force, could appeal to Christians and Muslims to pray and worship without going to the church or mosque was to carry along the leadership of NAREC in the determination of the COVID-19 guidelines. Thus, our COVID-19 response globally is adjudged to be the third after China, Japan. Nigeria comes third globally, acknowledged by the World Health Organization, by all agencies globally, by all scientists that have worked on COVID. That was made possible with the intervention and the convincing power of NIREC leadership that we must not go to our places of worship. We can worship from our homes for a little duration of time. And what did we do? When the technical people prepared the guidelines, before we issued it, I sent it to the leadership of NIREC. I said, look at the guidelines. We need this because it's very, very important. We have gotten to the peak of the pandemic. If we do not kind of restrain the pandemic, it will continue to multiply. And the only way is to stay away from our places of worship, which we will return to gradually through the processes of social distancing. And the leadership agreed with that guideline, signed it off. And through their networks, they were able to convince Nigerians about the implementation of the guidelines. The second of this intervention that I consider very remarkable, Your Eminence, the Sultan will remember when we decided to go to Jos. That same day, on the 6th of September 2021, there was terrible weather, and I was going to fly with His Eminence out of Abuja to Jos. The current president was leaving Ibadan to Lagos to catch a flight to Jos. Because of the terrible weather condition, flights were interrupted. And I pleaded with His Eminence to remain at home. I was at the airport to see how we can navigate that. And when there was clearance that we could move, for the plane to go to Lagos and pick the current president, we would waste a lot of time, at least 3 hours. So we decided to fly straight. But before then, at the airport, I sat there and I said, who do I ask for an aircraft to convey the current president? And I called a Muslim friend of mine who is a businessman. And I say, I have the current president sitting at the Lagos airport, waiting to go to Jos. But because of the weather conditions, flights have been interrupted. Can you give me one of your planes to convey him to Jos? Full disclosure, I told him that it was the current president. He's a Muslim. He said, do you have his contact details? I said, this is his number, this is his name, this is his location. Thus, within 30 minutes, I got a call back that a plane has been positioned for the current president by a Muslim businessman to convey him from from Lagos to Jos. And that was how Dr. Ayokule got to Jos. We flew with the Sultan from here. We got to Jos. I said, just drop him in Jos. Out of Jos, I will evacuate him to Abuja, then process him to go back to Lagos. That is the power of networking that NIREC provides. That is the platform. If I had asked for that for a different reason, probably I wouldn't have gotten those services. But because it was NIREC and everybody knew that the plateau was in flames and we needed to do something strategic. So NIREC is a viable and a veritable partner that we must keep. And we need it now even more expediently than ever before. The Nigerian Religious Council collaborates extensively with government to promote peace through dialogue. Beyond theological discussions, IRCs engage in practical joint action to address major societal problems that often fuel conflict, such as poverty, unemployment, insecurity, and disease. Interreligious councils collaborate with agencies like the National Action Committee on AIDS, NAC, and anti-corruption bodies. They engage in humanitarian projects such as providing aid to internally displaced persons and building essential infrastructure, schools and hospitals. Religious leaders use their platforms to advocate for peace, for peaceful coexistence, national unity, and responsible citizenship by issuing joint codes of conduct for responsible religious engagement to prevent inflammatory rhetoric. The councils conduct public awareness campaigns through radio programs like the webinar and billboards to promote messages of peace and tolerance. The Nigerian Interreligious Council has the NIREC Youth Forum to effectively engage the youth in peace-building projects. The federal government NIREC collaboration on youth development was deployed in 2019 and 2023. I personally did that to drastically reduce the manipulation of youth by unscrupulous politicians during elections. Prior to that, youth were exploited and made to indulge in violent acts and electoral malpractices such as surgery, ballot box snatching, etc. The Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution is a government agency that is directly under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, just as NIREC is working with the Office of the Secretary to the government. Other faith-based organizations can still work with government to ensure a cohesive approach to humanitarian response and peace-building efforts across all levels of the society. In conclusion, the interreligious councils have been supported by government, but not without challenges, especially in the area of funding. And I want to appeal to my successor to continue. I know government is constrained with funds, but we can always navigate resource management to ensure that resources are made available to NIREC. I remember before I became SDF, NIREC and the National Council for Traditional Rulers didn't have any vote in the Office of the Secretary to the government. But I asked the technical officers there, the permanent secretaries and the administrators, whether we could do something. And it was in the process that we created an expenditure line under the Office of the Secretary to the government to service the activities of NIREC and also the National Council for Traditional Rulers. This is where the government should take the work of interreligious councils as a priority and not as an opportunity cost or foregone alternative. While these collaborations have led to measurable successes in reducing local tensions and fostering better understanding, the attendant challenges could be overcome with renewed commitment and understanding. The interreligious councils should not be seen as elitists, managing the political manipulation of religious identities and addressing deep-seated structural issues like governance gaps and resource competition that frequently cause violence. The institutionalization of interfaith platforms must provide a critical ongoing mechanism for stability in Nigeria's complex socio-political landscape. The active functioning of the interreligious councils is indispensable. Let me repeat again. The active functioning of the interreligious councils is indispensable in a multi-religious and multi-ethnic society like Nigeria. So NIREC is going nowhere. NIREC has come to stay. I would like to conclude by congratulating NIREC for introducing the weekly webinars and online conference as against physical conferences. It is a web-based seminar that allows an online presentation, meeting, and workshop. It allows individuals or groups to interact in real time. This online conference became popular during the COVID period when people could not travel for physical conferences and meetings. Every Tuesday, the Nigeria Interreligious Council holds webinar at 8:30 p.m. Please, Executive Secretary, enlist as many members that are here today onto that. Sometimes I join and I see how hot the issues are being debated. But you know, in a state of crisis like we find ourselves, talking is more important than engaging in warfare. So let's provide an opportunity for people to ventilate their anger, their frustration about the government, about the religious leaders, about their ethnic leaders, about their traditional leaders. Sometimes you see some of the issues that are being generated there. Very controversial, but at the end of the day, the moderators will bring calm into the process. And members will disperse with a sense of satisfaction that they have been heard, even if nothing is being done about the issues that they have raised. So let's consider and continue with that. Let's embolden it, let's expand it. The primary aim and objective of NIREC is to honestly and sincerely endeavor by themselves and through them their followership to understand the true teachings of the two great religions, Christianity and Islam, including their peculiarities and personal mannerisms, through dialogues, discussions, workshops, seminars, conferences, and pamphlet distribution, etc. These weekly webinars and the WhatsApp group is keeping NIREC active instead of waiting only for the statutory meetings. It is my prayer that the Council will continue to enjoy government support and collaboration. I thank you for your kind attention, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so much.